So usually workout practice was on Fridays, right after lunch. I can't really recall very well how long it took, yet I do remember not being a fan. If this is your first time hearing such a term called war cry, Skawara, don't worry, I'll take you through it to a point where it's all clear. To my fellow old boys who can relate, we just sit back and take ourselves back and relive those war cry practice moments. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. My name is Sherlock Thompson, umkhwenyana wenyemuhle njalo. Uyezuma code. Now let's gather here together and define what a war cry is. I am not going to Google this or try and do some research on the internet. I'm going to give it to you raw, the way I experienced it. So in simple terms, in layman's terms, for any dumb cop to understand, a war cry is those chants. You see the chants that supporters, fans, or just a whole group of people you see do in the stands. Okay, maybe if I say chants, I might confuse some people. Let me just use the most popular one, sing. You see the songs that you see people chant in the stands. That is a war cry. Just to boost the morale of their team. That is a war cry. So you see supporters, fans, or just group of people chanting songs to put the morale of their team that they are supporting. It could be whichever sport and discipline, rugby, soccer, basketball. Those people were grouped together, chanting. Those people are busy with war cries there. Those are war cries. That's the proper term to give to whatever they are doing there. War cries. Alright? Hope that is clear now. A good example would be if, let's say, the Springboks are playing. That is in a South African context, right? The most popular war cry would be the Shosholoza one, which goes like this. Shosholoza, Shosholoza, Ulezuntaba, Stimela. You know that one? Exactly. That's a war cry. That is a war cry. So now let's bring it back home. Let's bring it back home. So now at school, we had to practice, right? That a day before match day. So workout practice was on a Friday because all the match days, especially for rugby, was on Saturday. So Fridays, that is when we had our workout practice, right? Personally, workout practice traumatized me, and here's why. On my very first day, which was on a Friday of second term, and obviously on that Saturday, it was a sports day. It was a match day, of which rugby was the major highlight. Let me repeat the rugby thing. Rugby was a major highlight, right? The whole reason there was ever workout practice was because the next day there would be rugby. Rugby was the king. Rugby was gold. Rugby ruled. Now let me emphasize this. It was my first day. I came in as a newcomer in second year and had zero knowledge on what was happening around me. So this whole day I'm just following people around like a headless chicken, because I have no idea what is going on. I have no idea. It's my first time. I don't even know the way to the dining hall. I don't even know the way to the toilets. I have no idea who is next to me. So I'm just busy following people around like a headless chicken. So anyway, lunch ended. And then we had to head fast to the famous rugby field for workout practice. right? I had no idea of the positioning in arrangements, the seating arrangements, when you get to the field, who stands, who sits where, how do you. And then at a later stage, that's where I found out that, okay, the juniors had to sit on the ground, right? The first years, the second years, the third years, they had to sit on the ground. And then the fourth years led the war cry practice, or the war cries, whatever. And then the fifth and the sixth were just enjoying themselves on the benches there, but they were singing as well, because they had to get into the groove, right? But then the war cries. When we were chanting the war cries, right? All those songs were first to my ears, but I loved them. I loved them. Yet now, the faces around me looked disgruntled and unhappy. The faces around me, they just looked disgruntled and unhappy. I only got to understand why at a later stage. What I did observe on the day is that vocal practice was aggressive, it was passionate, and on the same time, it was a ripe, R-I-P-E. It was a ripe field, right, for the seniors to shit on the juniors, as it was always the case everywhere. Any funny, silly, small mistake got one into trouble, especially as a junior. Now, let me give you an example. If you were to be found mumbling lyrics of a certain war cry, you're just mumbling the lyrics, you don't even know what you're singing. That was deemed illegal, and one had to be punished. And in some instances, you'd find yourself doing 5 or more laps around the rugby field, just for control and order. So vocal practice wasn't just child's play. It was a serious thing, and one had to take it serious. Each and every second, you had to take it serious. For me, it was traumatizing and fascinating at the same time. I certainly had mixed feelings afterwards. But above all, it was just confusion, because I did not expect this on my first day. I understood that this was an introduction to a whole new culture, and I was in for quite an experience, which later on was surely an experience, because I was never a fan afterwards. After the second, the third, the fourth, I was never a fan of vocal practice. Neither were my peers at that time. So this is all for today. Remember to subscribe, like, comment, and let's grow the channel together. Vocal practice, that was it.